Hello friends, my name is Keisha, and I'm a proud member of the Métis Nation of Saskatchewan. I'm also a survivor of human trafficking. My trafficking began in Canada and crossed into the United States. I was stalked, hunted, and ignored by the very systems that were meant to protect me. This is why, with my father, Dale Richardson, we started the CARES Project, an Indigenous survivor-led movement for humanity. We are dedicated to exposing human trafficking, government corruption, and holding institutions accountable. The judicial branch is broken. It has failed to restrain the evils that have come upon this republic. Whether it's family court failures, weaponization of the judiciary, COVID-era harms, or human trafficking, the courts have allowed these issues to continue unchecked for too long. One of the most powerful tools we're using is the petition for redress of grievances. These are lawful constitutional actions rooted in the founding principles of this country. On May 19, 2026, a formal petition for redress of grievances was submitted to the United States Congress. This petition is demanding that Congress and the President use the powers under Article 4, Section 4 to preserve this Republican form of government by restraining these abuses pending congressional investigation. Through the CARES Project Action Plan, we are mobilizing people across the United States to strengthen this effort. This petition has been created as a template. If you or someone you love have been hurt by these same systemic failures in the courts or by government institutions, your evidence matters. When you come forward, please bring your evidence along with a copy of the petition for redress of grievances. This helps connect your story to this growing constitutional record being placed before Congress. We are asking you to stand with us. Join the CARES Project Action Plan and help us build a precedent that demands accountability and protects the God-given rights of American families. Our united voices will compel Congress to uphold the Constitution and safeguard our liberties. United we stand, one nation under God. I will close with my favorite quote. The greatest want of the world is the want of men. Men who will not be bought or sold. Men who in their inmost souls are true and honest. Men who do not fear to call sin by its right name. Men whose conscience is as true to duty as the needle to the pole. Men who will stand for the right, though the heavens may fall. Thank you.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the CARES Project podcast. Today, we were with Laura Scharr, who's a former engineer and a marketing executive, and is also doing a lot of work with the election integrity. So, welcome to the show. Would you like to
Well, thanks for
introduce?
having me, Dale.
Yes, please introduce yourself to our audience, please.
Yeah, so my name is Laura Scharr, and I'm with South Carolina Safe Elections. I've been doing this since the 2020 election, and really for no other reason than I want a vote that everyone, regardless of their party, feels that they can trust. They have confidence in the results of their elections. And so we've been doing a lot of work over the last several years. And it is frustrating, but we're not going to stop until we have safe, secure elections in South Carolina and in our nation.
Well, without elections, I mean, you don't really have a country, right? Like, there's no freedom. If you can't vote, how do you actually have people there to do your will? You can't. And so it's critical to any free society to have elections and elected officials. Otherwise, you have, a de facto monarchy because somebody else is putting it
Exactly.
in and controlling it. So,
Yeah, our vote is our voice, right? And we can't just have, right now, I believe we have selections instead of elections, right? And the reason being, we have given up the control of our elections over to corporations, the electronic voting machine companies, and other third-party contractors. We've also become far more centralized. The people aren't in charge. The people aren't hand counting their ballots right there at local neighborhood anymore. There's vote centers. There's drop boxes, not in South Carolina, thankfully, but in other places in the United States. The mail-in voting is a big issue, and so we gave up control to not only a more centralized version of counting, but also to these big black boxes. And our state government, our federal government is very involved. There's a lot of technology. And as we know, computers can be hacked. And so there are many ways that election malfeasance can occur. And it's important for us to make sure that we're making the whole process as transparent, verifiable, accessible, and secure as possible. Those are the 4 tenets that we believe create the gold standard for elections.
Yes, and when you're talking about the mail-in ballots and so forth, when I looked at 2020 and I saw that what they did with COVID, and the cat, once it came out of the bag, it never went back in, because they made a bunch of sweeping unconstitutional changes. And now elections are counted in days instead of on the same night. Like, I'm sorry, that doesn't fly. Those things need to be done away with, because they were never constitutional in the first place. And in fact, they were part of a larger crime, which makes everything criminal. Like 2020, not valid. Not at all. One day.
So what happened was COVID, of course, was the excuse. As you're saying, that was the bigger crime, an excuse for us to totally changed the processes and procedures, because prior to COVID, South Carolina had one day, election day. And we had absentee balloting, for specific reasons. But that was it. And then we moved. And unfortunately, what happened during COVID was a lot of states then said, well, because of COVID, we need to just change our whole procedure. Like, let's do drop boxes and let's do like a month of early voting. I know, we'll just mail everybody their ballots instead of them actually showing up and voting, which I believe is something very precious. It's a procedure that we should feel really good about. I think Election Day is like a holiday, and it's something that should be revered instead of just filling out a ballot, sticking in the mail, done. So that's what happened. You're right. And it was done without legislative changes, because it was an emergency action, right? And then subsequent to that, there have been some changes to the legislature. Like, I know in South Carolina, we instituted 2 weeks of early voting. And of course, in other states, you see much larger periods of early voting, as well as these huge periods of the ballots just flowing in after Election Day. And we're seeing that right now in California, with particularly that mayoral race. They don't want Spencer Pratt in. Let's face it, they're going to count that baby until it changes. And it just flipped, I think, last night or today, and he's no longer in the top 2. So that is very concerning. And I'm telling you right now that early voting and these late ballots flowing in, this is a major issue, because these are potential gateways for fraud, both sides of the equation. And people go, oh, it's so convenient, but it's dangerous. It's the way that you can cheat.
Yes, and people have to look at like the election. It's like a control system, and you're having failures everywhere, and you're introducing where you're introducing so much errors in areas where you can have cheating. Mail-in ballots should just not be a thing. Like, yes, there are times where with a minuscule percentage of the population where that was a thing, that's fine. If it's 1%, who cares? You're not going to be enough to cheat to sway an election. And there are cases where if somebody's disabled, whatever, they can't have that, you get that done. People in the military, so forth. Mm-hmm. But everybody else, you're an able-bodied human being. You're not overseas. You get yourself there, or you get someone to take it for you. That's no ifs, ands, or buts. You shouldn't be. The mail-in is just, it needs to be done away with.
Yeah, I agree. And we had about 50% of the people mailing in their ballots via absentee. We don't have universal mail in South Carolina, but that's really high. And think about the chain of custody issues there. You're trusting the post office. You're trusting everybody that touches that piece of mail. Some of those, we found that we all heard the stories about the ballots being found on the side of the road or in a lake, or just they found them months later. The chain of custody issues, you're right, are just numerous. So that's why it's important for you to go on election day, and I vote as late as possible, and do it in person so that you see your ballot, you go walk over, and then you put it into the bin through the tabulator. But once again, that's a big black box, right? So one of the things people need to know is that this month, the Supreme Court should be deciding this very important case. It's Watson versus the RNC. And Judicial Watch was a little bit involved there, but essentially they're trying to make it so that these ballots can't be flowing in well after Election Day. And so I think that if they decide the right way, and if you listen to Justice Alito, he seemed like he was leaning towards voting that Election Day was a day. He said his specific words were something to the effect of, Election Day is a day, it's not a week or a month. And this is what we're seeing right now play out in California. So we have to pray about that decision of the Supreme Court that SCOTUS does the right thing and stops this bleeding of ballots post-Election Day.
Speaking of judges, and I agree that they should rule the right way, I think that the judges have been a problem with this election fraud issue because they've been protecting it and they've been dismissing it for the most ridiculous types of things. And when you really look at this, what the judges are saying in action is that our rules and procedures are reason to rob you of your republic, which that can't happen. There is no way that you can sit down and say that you're going to try to use a technical issue to deal with the loss of the United States. That is just insane. And judges who do this need to be disciplined. And this is why I went back and I read when we did the petition that my daughter was talking about. I went back and I read the Federalist Papers, and I began to look at what the founding fathers said the way that the branches were supposed to work. This was common sense, but it reaffirmed what I was already saying, because you look at the Constitution, you're looking at, they have to have like checks and balances. This is common sense, but these guys, this is what they said on how it's supposed to work. So when you're having judges that are doing this, they're out of line, and they're only supposed to have their power based on their good behavior. And they're not having good behavior when they're protecting the grossest crimes. Those guys need to be disciplined so that the other judges don't think that they have any leeway to do that.
I agree. And we had a situation where we sued our state election commission because we wanted access to the cast vote records, which basically gives the voters in South Carolina the itemized detail of the count of their vote as it comes in over time. Right now, we just get the total amount. So let's think if you went to Costco and they're scanning a lot of items, they would never hand you a receipt that just says, okay, that's $200. They're going to give the detail of everything they scanned. Well, that's what we wanted for our vote. And in South Carolina, our Constitution says the vote shall be cast in secret, but shall not be counted in secret. So we sued. We said, hey, we need at least, if that's a big black box that we're putting our ballots in and we don't know the detail of the count, we need to get that. Because now it's up to 30 other states and the District of Columbia that have allowed access to that report post-2020 election. Now, in South Carolina, they were giving it out like candy. And in September of 2020, there was a letter that went from the Election Commission to the Attorney General, Alan Wilson, who was actually running for governor. And he basically said, oh, no, stop it. They can't get the detail of their vote anymore because there might be some personal identifiable information. Well, there isn't. There's no identifiable information on those ballots. So we took our case to the courts, and the judge dismissed it. And he ruled in favor of the Election Commission without ever allowing us to present our evidence. And we had over 1,000 pages of evidence that said, this is not applicable to our Constitution. It's a big black box that is counting in secret. We have a lot of evidence that shows that there's no way to tie a voter to a ballot, that if there are any issues like tiny little ballot styles where someone might show up and there's one person that voted and there's one ballot style and you might be able to identify that person. You can redact it. We had everything lined up. We had experts from all over the United States, but they ruled for the election commission and they drained us. They did lawfare to the point where we spent over $88,000 roughly to not even have a trial and to have them rule against us. So I feel your pain about the judges, and I just felt like they all just wanted to make the AG happy. That's how I felt in the end.
Yes.
Shut the people up, these peons. They can't know how their votes counted.
Well, and you're supposed to be able to do this. Like, obviously, you can't have anybody just walk in and have access. But in times of investigation to find out if something is going wrong, this is where you would get access. Like if, for example, there was some type of medical issue crime that they were investigating, the police would get access to those records to ensure that they were not doing something wrong or to find out the nature of what went wrong.
Well, if we can't find anything wrong, if they're not going to give us the report, if there's no transparency, you can't find the fraud, you can't find the crime. And this is the problem. How do we know? How do we know our vote was legit if they're not enabling us to audit, like to do a citizen's audit? And what's even interesting, Dale, is they're taking that same information they won't give to us and they're giving it to a third party for them to do virtual, kind of a virtual audit, right? So they get all that information, but we can't have it.
But this is like literally obstruction, because what would you do with that information if you found something wrong? You would take it to the law enforcement and you would take it to get charges so that people could get arrested. So the fact that they're blocking that information is wrong, because people should be able to sit down and say, listen, there is a problem here. We want to get this information so that we can turn it over to law enforcement if there's something wrong, or take you to court, or take the governor, whoever, to court to restrain them from doing whatever it is they're doing. But you can't do that if you have no access.
Yeah, and South Carolina is one of the least transparent states when it comes to elections because they won't allow the cast vote records. 30 other states have since 2020. They will not allow us to even see the ballots. Even if it's post-election and they're all doing a small audit, we're not allowed to look at them. Like we could tell from a ballot card with barcodes on it who any kind of person identifiable information. It's insane. And we don't even have election judges. Like most states have bipartisan election judges, and they're able to observe all the processes, look at the ballots, handle the ballots in some cases, and we can't. And in fact, we'll sometimes try to go and observe and like, okay, sit in the corner over there, don't you move. Or they'll say, now you can't look at these, don't take any picture. Like, it's silly. And there's not even one person in South Carolina who is an election official who is actually elected. They're all appointed.
Of course
So
they are.
this is a crony Southern good old boy network going on in South Carolina.
Speaking of South Carolina, there's a magistrate judge, Molly Cherry, out of the district court of in Charleston, the U.S. District Court. We filed because my case with my daughter's case was a lot of retaliation and so forth. But it was, I understood right away that COVID was tied to the election. So we ended up filing, because of the retaliation, the stuff that was happening to her, we filed under the Crime Victims' Rights Act. And then we did a motion for relief under USC 3771, which is within the rights to do so. And we put in there that all of this was happening as retaliation for this, and COVID was tied to the elections and so forth. You're supposed to take that in 5 days to deal with it. She took 276 days. 276 days, right? And then just to put it aside, because I straight up said what it is, and she mentioned what I said, but just didn't actually look at the merits of it and just tried to use some procedural issue, which is what I see across the board. It doesn't matter what it is. Every court hearing that I look, when they want to take away your rights, they will do this.
Lawfare.
All the election cases were all like this, all like the Like I looked at the J6ers
Because
case,
they want
all
you
like
to
this.
go away. They try to
Yes.
intimidate you. They drag it out. They want you to go away. This is not about justice.
No. This is that's a problem. And I mean, when you look at what's happening in California, and then you're looking at what's happening in all of these other elections, you're watching people that, for example, are very popular, and you're looking at the popular. It's like watching Biden, who never left his basement, win the largest, getting the most amount of votes in history. Like, it doesn't make sense.
It's laughable. But it was funny because I was meeting with some senator once in a Zoom meeting, and I thought he was kidding, but he was dead serious. And he said, and I said, it really is silly, like that Biden won, because like even just common sense, the guy didn't really at all go out there and work it. He couldn't fill up a parking lot with trucks. And he looked straight at me and said, "Oh my God, no, he out campaigned Trump. He ran a great campaign." Exactly. My mouth went down and I went, "Is he kidding me?" And then he was dead serious. I was like, "Okay, you just told me a lot." So, and part of the issue too, you say it's all about popularity, and this is the problem we get into. It's the family dynasties. It's the same people in South Carolina, and people will just go and go, "Well, I'll check the box because I recognize the name." Like, that's not why you vote for someone.
Mm-hmm.
And it's kind of disturbing too, because Trump is endorsing the people that I will tell you right now, the grassroots conservatives are not aligned with. It's like he doesn't understand what's on the ground. He's not paying attention to the pulse of the people, and he promised to give the power back to the people. And so the only way you give power back to the people is, like you said earlier, Dale, our vote is our voice. Allow us to speak. Allow us to decide who we want. It's not about someone endorsing someone and saying you must vote for this person. What's worse is he's running negative kind of truth socials against people he's never met. And I personally know there's a lot of dark money that's going into South Carolina through some PACs and such. There's outright lying, splicing together interviews, that TV ads that look so negative for these poor people. And I'm like, wait a second, that guy's actually a good guy. He's a conservative in the race. So it's disturbing because people don't know better. They tend to vote like lemmings. And I always encourage them, please go do your own research. Call a candidate if you want. Many of the candidates are very approachable, or at least their staff, their campaign staff will. But when we talk about election reform and fraud, we really need to go back to campaign finance reform. This is my aha moment, because seeing this really negative, our election is tomorrow, and seeing all these negative ads, negative postcards. And I know some of these people for years, and I'm like, wait a second, that's ridiculous. Like, they're calling the AG candidate David Pascoe, they're saying that he's super liberal. He's a Democrat turned Republican. He's a rhino. And I'm like, wait a second, he's pro-life. He's pro-gun. He's pro-death penalty. He's actually more conservative than the other two who have been Republicans for a while, who are actually rhinos, in my personal opinion. So that's off. And then same thing, they have another guy running against Lindsey Graham, Mark Lynch, and they're showing him. Now, he had a record when he was young, and I mean young. He must have been about 20.
Mm-hmm.
And they're showing him in like a mugshot, like it was just yesterday, right? Like, it's not like he's 20. Like, artificial intelligence, it's poppycock. Some of this stuff is outright lies. They need to stop with the dark money. People coming into our state from outside of the state.
And this is where I think, and where I agree with you in Canada more than this, is that after a time, if you've done a certain amount of time and you've not had any crimes, they'll give you, they'll remove your record, and then no one can see it and pull it up. And it's not for public record either, unless you're like a sex offender or you're a crazy, dangerous person. Because if you made one mistake, did something dumb, right, when you were a kid, why should you pay for it for the rest of your life, right?
Like, God forgives.
Exactly.
God forgives. And people are totally capable of atoning for their sins. And he has done more than that, because not only is he clean and sober for 40 years plus, he and his wife, but they also, they mentor addicts. They try to rehabilitate. They're actively helping those because they know how hard it was 40 years ago. And so they're doing everything that God would expect them to do, but they're being excoriated in the media with dark money, millions of dollars that's coming from out of state. And to me, you follow the money. If you see a lot of negative ads and it's a lot of money coming from the PACs, and of course, then it's tit for tat. Then you see all this money flooding in, it's going back and forth. And I just try to tune out the negative ads and find out, as a candidate, what are you going to do for me? Because the negative ads are a form of election interference.
Yes.
This campaign money that comes in and floods from outside countries, PACs, other states, federal, whatever, that's a form of election interference. So I try to tune that out and get to know the candidate or candidates, watch the debates, and vote based on what they're telling me and, my own gut instinct.
Yes. Like, I ran in a provincial election here in Canada a couple of years back because I never liked politics. Like, yeah, we would talk about politics, but never thought I would become a politician. But when I saw what happened, I was like, nobody's doing anything. I need to fix this.
Right.
But when I saw the election interference isn't just about the machines like you're talking about.
It's nasty.
Like the media, I got shut out from the candidate debates, and they lied in the media and so forth because I would have made sure accountability happened. I would have brought information
of course.
and
But
said,
that's why they wanted to lie about you. They didn't want a good person running. They didn't want an honest person running.
No, they don't. And the thing with Trump, his social media, most of the time he's not running. There are other guys that deal with it. Yeah. And I'll say right now, people have to understand, and I'm not saying Trump is a perfect person because none of us are, but he's got a lot of bad people around, and they do this to every leader. They will always get just ridiculous people. And what I noticed when this became very clear with COVID, and this is why we structured the petition around this, because your advisors are responsible for giving you the correct information. Now, you're never going to get all of the information because he just doesn't have time. He's one person, but they have a lot of knowledge, and they have their subject matter experts, and they bring this to him. But what we saw in COVID, first of all, the Secretary of Human Health and Services did not bring the correct information, because when I look back and what I've looked at, there was a lot of lies and so forth were suppressed. And then he's like, okay, let's declare a national emergency. So then the president goes and declares a national emergency because these guys are lying to him. So then how is it then you see how this problem happens? No matter how good he is or how bad he is, if you have people lying to them, you're never going to be able to make the right decisions.
Yeah, he needs to listen to grassroots people and not his advisors all the time. The advisors are and the poor man probably doesn't even know who he can trust at this point. But I can tell you his endorsements for South Carolina are off. They're not correct. And here's the thing: if we can fix elections, right? If people like you who want to run feel that the vote is counted accurately, we'll get better qualified candidates. You can run again and go, okay, now I feel really jazzed up about running because I trust the system. I know that it's counted okay. I feel like this could be a legit election, and maybe fix the campaign finance so we don't have money pouring in and bashing people with lies.
But that's the point. If the elections are counted fairly, the establishment candidates lose.
That's why they don't want to fix it. Look, they didn't pass the SAVE Act in the Senate. They don't want that fixed. This is like incumbent security plan, right? Those machines. It's the incumbent security plan.
We just have to take a short commercial break, but we'll come back and talk about the implications of them not passing the SAVE Act, because that's a huge problem. Okay. So we'll be right back.
Yep.
Terrio, co-founder of Mark37.com. I spent my career in Silicon Valley working for high-tech infrastructure companies, and I've witnessed firsthand the surveillance apparatus they've built. Most of you already know we're in a digital war right now. But are you really aware that we're trying to fight this war with the weapons and tools of the enemy? That Android or iPhone in your pocket? That MacBook or Windows laptop? It's a tracking device feeding everything you say and do to companies that want you under their control or eliminated entirely. Every text, call, location, even how long you pause on a post, they track it all and use complex algorithms to then use this data to manipulate your behavior. If you knew someone hacked your devices and was selling your data without your consent, you'd be furious and terrified. So why are you okay with these companies doing this to you right now? Here's what they don't want you to know. There is another way. At mark37.com, we offer phones, laptops, tablets, and even basic flip phones, all running systems big tech can't access unless you explicitly give them access. And what's even better is you also don't need to sacrifice productivity. I'm one of thousands of geeks mobilized across this country, building tools and providing education and support to help you live anonymously online before they enforce digital ID. Go to mark37.com. Sign up for a free 30-minute digital privacy consultation. Join hundreds of thousands who have decided to stop feeding their data to companies actively working to enslave us. Take back your communications. Take back your data. And may God bless you on your journey.
Yes, and I got myself one of those phones because I don't like companies taking my information. And if you go to mark37.com and you go to buy a phone, use the promo code CARES and you get 5% off, because I mean the government is taking your information from those companies to do illegal spying from you. So you have all of these corruption in the agencies, especially here in Canada. This is like China, right? I mean, you need to have protection. It's not that I'm not doing anything that they should be worried about. It's the fact that they should not be able to get into your information without lawful cause. And that's the whole point. They shouldn't be able to break the law. And also, for all the other things you can see, if you want to support us, you can see the links in the ticker. And you can go to mypillow.com/Karis and get yourself some good stuff. All right. Let's get back to where it was about the SAVE Act. Now, the SAVE Act not passing is a problem, because there's no steps being taken to secure elections. Regardless of what people say they like it or not, the point is that we cannot leave the elections the way they are. So what now when they've shot that down?
Yeah, so I think that actually he was waiting to see what happened there. And this is just my personal opinion, but I think it could be, there's a lot going on right now, a lot of moving parts. And I'm going to try to read the tea leaves for everybody to kind of give a sense of what I think is happening. I don't know for sure, just my discernment and looking at all what's, again, the tea leaves. But the SAVE Act doesn't pass. So now Trump has a way to go back and say, hey, I've given you guys all the chances. And you haven't done it. You haven't done what I've asked you to do. You haven't done what's right for the people. The people have asked you to do this. This polls like 70, 80%, depending on who, even the Democrats want the SAVE Act passed, but the Senate doesn't. They're not doing the will of the people. So I think it gives him more ammunition to move forward with any plans that he had for election reform. Now, also, the second executive order that he did for election reform, which was, I think, just over a month ago, it addresses a lot of the elements in the SAVE Act, because it enables the feds to actually clean up the voter rolls, like get the databases from the states and make sure that they have clean addresses, that everything is, it also addresses the citizenship issue. So a lot of the issues in the SAVE Act are actually addressed in that second EO. But because that didn't pass, and then I think if you're going to see SCOTUS soon, they're going to decide what's going to happen with that case about the ballots coming in, the Watson versus RNC, the ballots coming in after Election Day. So keep an eye out for that. And I think he's going, if they say, hey, no more ballots after Election Day, that helps that part. That's the back end part. His executive order that is quite similar to the SAVE Act, and in some ways a little different, has some unique aspects to it. That's going to help a lot as well. But I think what we're going to see is a movement to the national emergency authorization. And I think that has to happen. People are looking at California and they're saying, I don't like that anymore. This is ridiculous. We should know what the results are on election night, not 2 weeks, not a month later. And so you're seeing the signs. Number one, Kurt Olson, who was in charge of election integrity for the president, reports directly to the president, just was reassigned down to Southern District of Florida. So he's going to be working under Joe Genova. And that's notable because the grand jury is in place right now that is investigating the election interference and the Russian collusion. And so the fact that Kurt Olson is moving there, I think, is a sign that they're getting ready to do some heavy lifting, maybe some prosecution of some bad actors with respect to the election, both from a Russian interference perspective, because that was election interference, as well as the actual election per se that was stolen in 2020. So I think that's a good sign. Then on the other hand, last week there was a Truth Social post that Trump put out, and he said, I now know how the 2020 election was stolen, and I know who did it. And it sounded like he was ready to let that, because they've been kind of telegraphing that, priming the pump. Tulsi said, hey, listen, these machines are an issue. We're seeing issues. There's vulnerabilities. They actually put out a report on many of the vulnerabilities. Then you have Truth Social posts from Trump. He's constantly said that it was rigged. He knows it was rigged. And so that's notable. Now, I don't know, Dale, if you saw the interview between him and Kristen Welker. Did you see that? That was like...
No.
So Kristen, oh my gosh, I could watch it all day long. It's like so much fun. Kristen Welker is, they're talking about election integrity. Okay. And Trump refers to California. And he's talking about, hey, look, the 2020 election was stolen. That was rigged. The California, and I'm kind of summarizing it myself. I'm not going to use his exact words, but he's referring to the fact that elections are rigged. Look at look at California. This is a travesty. She's like, and she almost says, you don't know what you're talking about, kind of a thing. Oh, that's just what people say. There's no proof, blah, blah, blah. He gets so irritated.
Is that where he got up and left?
Yes.
Okay, I saw a clip of that.
He should have gotten up and left. She's like, we traveled so far to see you, President Trump. Oh, you can't do this to me. He's like, oh, no, you're fake news. You're lying. Your network's corrupt. You're corrupt. She's like, I'm not corrupt. We came so far. It was like, oh, poor me. And he's like, oh, no. I mean, this is the commander in chief. He's the president of the United States, and you're dressing him down and telling him he's lying? He had every right to get off.
I've never seen anybody in the media treat a president the way they treated President Trump. Never in my life have I ever, no elected official have I seen a state, like a media from that country, treat that person that way. It's
totally disrespectful. And he did the right thing. And I'm not always a fan of his Truth Social posts because I think they, his meme team or whatever, they need a little adjustment. But that was perfectly called for. I think he should have done that. And he should have left her sitting there. Listen, and I think my personal opinion is he was drawing attention to the issue. If he hadn't walked out, it wouldn't have got such coverage. He's saying, listen, I know they're lying. I know what happened. And that tells me it might be coming out soon. Like he's going to lay it out on the table. He's going to lay it all out and say, this is what happened. So the only way that he can move forward, in my humble opinion, is to do a national emergency authorization. And he's got to get rid of the universal mail-in voting. He's got to get rid of these ballots that go way past Election Day. We have to have only citizens voting. And we got to get rid of the machines. And what we've done an enormous amount of work, South Carolina Safe Elections and the Gold Standard Elections team, because I've worked both in state, but with multiple specialists and grassroots advocates and experts across the nation. And we have developed not only a white paper that says, here's how you completely re-engineer the 4-phase election process, but also we drafted separately, a separate team drafted from all across the nation. There were maybe about 8 to 10 of us, maybe more on any given day. But a lot of work went into it. And we did an implementation EO for the elections. And that went to Trump's people a year ago. So he has a lot of information in terms of what is the gold standard. And you can find all this at Gold Standard Elections. You can also find it at scsafeelections.org, goldstandardelections.com, scsafeelections.org. But we specify exactly how we would re-engineer the entire election process. How do we do voter registration? How do we do voter validation? How do we do the marking and counting of the ballots? And how do we do the reporting? And we give our specific recommendations. And we spent an inordinate amount of time actually testing how to efficiently count, hand-marked paper ballots, because these machines have to go. They're weapons of vote destruction. So we were able to look at things like the layout of the tally sheet, the color of the pens that were used to tally, how you call it out, pretty much a number of variables. We took the scientific method, which you're well aware of. You're an engineer, I'm an engineer too. And we found out which was most cost-effective and productive. And all you need is people, paper, pens, and maybe some cameras. So you don't want to just put a bunch of people in a room not surveilled, right? So you want to at least have either scan the ballots first with a simple scanner, not a tabular, simple scanner, so that you have a redundancy, or you can mount a camera, a very simple, like cheap cell phone, you can mount over the ballots so you can see the ballots as they're being counted and flipped.
Yes.
And we can count we've done an actual election, because we got the cast vote records, not from South Carolina, but from another state, but they're the actual ballots. And we had 1,000 ballots, which is what we would want for a small precinct. We need small precincts to do this, about no more than 1,500. So you assume 65% roughly, turnout rate. That's about 1,000 ballots. And we counted 1,000 ballots with a team of about 3-4 person teams, right? So about 12 people. And it took us about 8 hours, it was 8 to 10 races, and it took us about 3.5 to 4 hours. So that we could count by midnight. And that's for the biggest race, right? The general election. We can count from 7 till 11 and be done.
Yes.
So we don't need the machines. We just spent over like $32 million on just new tabulators and associated equipment for South Carolina. $32 million. And we just had purchased an entire new system to the tune of like $61 million, like 4 or 5 years prior. And they told us it was going to last 10 years. So why did we have to pay that money? We could do it with people, paper, and pens, and save a lot of money for the counties and the citizens.
Well, here in Canada, we don't use the machines for a federal election. They use them in other areas, but it's still terrible because of the places that they use them. They're allowing people to get into places, and in Canada, it's more important. Your provincial elections, in some aspects, are more important because we don't have a federal criminal court system. It's all done through the provinces. So if you have control in there, the federal government is never going to get arrested for the crimes that they're committing, right?
So you vote all of your judges in. So we don't vote any judges in. They're all appointed. You appoint them as well?
They're appointed. They're federally appointed.
See, that's a problem too.
For life.
Like, well, the state judges that's what I'm mainly talking about. The state judges in South Carolina are all appointed. We do not elect any of our judges. So there's this really nepotism and like incestuous kind of relationship between the legislators who are appointing them and the judges who get appointed.
That was the mistake the founding fathers made, because they brought that from the British system. Because that's where we got it from. Because the king would appoint judges for life, and they thought it was a good idea to have somebody that they didn't have to worry about their position, so they could rule whatever they want. But if you install someone to do your will, well, how do you remove them, right? They have no fear of losing their job, and they'll do whatever they want, right?
And I think that makes sense. Like for SCOTUS, I don't think you want a lot of like musical chairs when you have certain parties coming in. I think there's something to be said for the constancy of that system. But yeah, it's a big issue to have all these appointed positions. And you bring up a good point. So even if you're not using the machines for counting, if you're using the machines in other areas, so for example, the poll books, if you come in and have people doing electronic poll books, there's a lot of hanky-panky going out with electronic poll books. So I don't know if you heard about the Bexar County issue in Texas, but they had a list of like who voted that day or whatever, and it went up, and that came from the poll book, the electronic poll book. And when someone from their precinct looked at the names of the people who voted, they found that there were multiple names that were the same name. Maybe they changed one little middle initial, or the addresses changed slightly. It was very odd. It'd be like 123 Main Street, 124 Main Street, but it was the same name. And they said, this is really weird. And it was multiples of the same name, like a lot of, maybe like 73 multiples of different names. So it was very weird. And that tells you everything you need to know. That's like, they call them clones. I call it the attack of the clones. And there's a blog on my website about it that gives more detail, but you can still hand count. But if you have people checking in and you've got a really nasty system that's changing after the fact, and then it might also become corrupt. So you have to make sure you're looking at all these areas along the way so that you clean it up. And that's what our gold standard election system does. It looks at all the areas.
And we do use some of the machines, like the voting machines, in some of our elections, just not the federal ones.
Right.
What I'm saying is that when you have a machine in this issue, and like I tell people, if you have an electronic device, you're increasing risk. It's not secure.
100%.
It's not as secure as a piece of paper and a pencil, because you can't hack a pencil. Like you can't. Like, do you know what I'm saying? I know,
right? And you can hack and cheat at scale with a computer. So here's some interesting statistics. The system that we have in South Carolina, which is 6.3.0.0. It's certified to standards from 2005. That's over 25 years ago. Are you out of your mind? Like, what the heck? This makes no sense.
No, it doesn't. Like, I mean,
that's before the iPhone. That's before the iPhone. Why would we be adhering to these old standards?
But if you were trying to bring an operating system from 25 years ago, it ain't gonna work with most everything that's there, right? Like,
yes, I think it still has Windows 10. Yes, it does, if I'm recalling correctly. And there have been no patches or antivirus updates for years. That's on the electionware system.
So then it has basically no protection, none.
Pretty much. And then of course you know that it's flash drives. Like you could mess with the flash drives. You could change things out, and it's just so easy to hack a machine. And in fact, I'm good friends, well, not good friends, but one of my colleagues, Clay Parikh, I just had a nice little conversation with him, and he said, yeah, it took me about 2.5 minutes to hack into an ES&S system, less than that. And I'm like, and he actually he was the one who was in the testing labs that was running the test to certify the machines. And he was like, it's a dog and pony show. It's ridiculous. It's not robust. I'm like, yeah, I'm not surprised.
Yeah, they just need to do away with them, because the way that they're done, they're not secure. They've been designed porously. Like, I mean, if you were going to put a machine in that you wanted to do this, you could make it a lot better than what they have now. And I still wouldn't trust it, because I understand that if you can send a signal one way, you can send a signal the other way. It doesn't matter, right? And so
yeah,
I don't.
I'll tell you what my biggest fear is. What my biggest fear is, Dale, they're going to say, let's just go to blockchain. Let's go to blockchain. But
absolutely
he who controls
not.
the blockchain, yes, exactly. He who controls the blockchain, who controls the power, they're in charge of that vote. And no, thank you.
People, engineers understand this. They understand this. Don't do it. Like, I understand conceptually it's a good idea for some things, but when you have anything electronic like that, you cannot control it. It cannot be controlled. I don't care how secure you say it is. If you can create this system, somebody can create a way to defeat it.
Exactly. And we have a good article on our website too about why you would not want to have blockchain voting. We have an incredible cyber expert that we work with, and she has incredible, props, and she did a great job with that. I'm not the cyber expert, so I defer to her, but really she does a great job of outlining why we can't use electronic voting systems at all, and particularly blockchain is not the solution. But we need to have a people-centered, we need to go back, we need to return the power to the people, elections for the people, by the people. that they trust and have confidence in. Over half, I think it's close to 60% of Americans, likely voters, don't trust or elect that their vote is not being somehow corrupted. They think that their votes, there's going to be cheating in the primaries. And now they've seen it in California and in Bear, Texas. And when you see it in a couple places like that with different manufacturers, you just assume it's happening everywhere. And I think that's a good assumption.
Well, and this is why we encourage people to bring their information forward onto the petition, because this is a consequence of a judicial branch that has failed. The reason why these guys are getting away with this is because what judge is there to stop them when you take it to the law enforcement to do anything? You try to go to the court to compel them to do their duty. They don't. You try to get them to investigate. They won't look into it. So if the judicial branch was functioning in the way that it was, we wouldn't have these problems. Like all the things that you're seeing right now going wrong in America, going wrong in the world, is a result of a failed judicial branch, because the judicial branch is designed for the average person to go and restrain the other two branches of government when they're stepping out of line. But when the judicial branch, it's like West Side Chicago all over, right? Like from the 20s. Al Capone was like, okay, it's too hard to bribe all the cops, so I'll bribe all the judges. So is all the judges on the take, so it doesn't matter how many times you get arrested, they walk, and they're just letting the stuff slide. This is exactly what we're seeing. Not every judge is corrupted. I'm not saying that, but there's enough corruption in there that you're not going to get anywhere if somebody doesn't want you to. And that's why we did this, because under the First Amendment right to petition for redress of grievances, it is the strongest thing that you can do. Go back to the Declaration of Independence. At the end of the day, they said our humble petitions were met with repeated injury. And then what happened? They penned the Declaration of Independence, because when the judges failed and everything else failed, they used the right of petition for redress, which was designed so if the British were like, okay, so if the French are coming and your neighbor is a traitor and he's stealing your cows to feed the French army, well, you're going to go down and say, well, hey, you got to deal with this because the French are at our doorstep and we got traitors, right? Then that would get to where it needs to go. So they brought that in there and they codified it under the First Amendment. And this is what people need to start exercising, because they don't do it anymore. They phase this out because this had to be a plan. Because when I look at everything that's happened over the last, for example, especially the last few years, but if you look over the last 50 or 60 years, you'll see it very clearly that they're taking away things that were necessary. And the founding fathers said that America was going to fall only by infiltration, not by invasion.
What's happened? We're captured. And I would say it's really all branches of government, because you're right, our judiciary system is failing us. Obviously, our legislative system they're failing us because they couldn't pass the SAVE Act. We can't get good election integrity bills through our legislature. Other states are having the same problems. And we couldn't get our governor to put some pressure on, our election commission to get cast vote records, or our attorney general. So it's really frustrating when, and then of course, like you said, Trump might be around some people who are not giving him some good advice, and he's got a lot of other things that he's got to do. So unfortunately, it's the slow infiltration that has occurred. We're captured, but it's up to the people. We cannot be lazy. We cannot say Trump's in, everything's going to be okay, or gee, SCOTUS will have our back, or whatever, because it's up to us. We've got to, like you said, exercise our First Amendment rights and fight and be truth tellers. And that was my whole goal when I did this. I just wanted to be a truth teller. I wanted to find the truth. I wanted to speak the truth. I want to make sure that everybody could have a truthful, authentic election they trusted. And if we don't have the people standing up and vote, go out there and vote, especially for the primaries, we're going to lose our country.
Well, and like I tell people, I said the Constitution of the United States starts with "we the people." It doesn't say "I the president" or the government. It says "we the people," right? Like, so
exactly.
There's two parties in any constitution: the government and the people. The government they don't have rights because it's a job description. The only people who have rights are the people, because when you're in the government, you don't have rights. You basically have
you're a servant.
Exactly. You have no
servant, but they don't act like that. They act like a power couple.
So then when the government breaks the contract, who's left to enforce it? The people. right? And like,
people. But I think it's going to be a lot of pressure because of January 6th, so that people can't rise up or even protest, like peacefully protest.
well,
And that's, I think, an issue. And I think the military might also almost have to be involved at some point if
well,
things don't turn around.
this is what protests like. Okay, when they went there to protest, they that was picketing. This is why they arrested. They changed the things. What people should have went and did was, like, when the Constitution was written, I went back and looked at it on what they set up, and I went back even further because it talked about where it came from the British common law. With petition for redress of grievances are written, and they have the remonstrance and so forth. These are all written things, and they need to be presented in a certain way. And people need to use these things. Every person should understand all of these things because a lot of things that were done are no longer done anymore, and they changed them. And they did this for a specific reason. But people need to pressure them with the law because if they come after you when you have the law on your side, it becomes very different, and more people are going to wake up. But I'm not sitting down and saying being violent. I don't condone that.
No, right.
I'm
I don't
saying
either. I'm not in that kind of protest, but I'm just saying they need to keep, raise their
pressure.
voices and let people know how they feel. Yeah.
Show
Too
up.
few people are involved.
Yeah, show up at their offices. They need to show up in person. They need to stick cameras in their faces. They need to ask them the questions, force the issue, make their lives miserable. They need to start
Make
looking
calls,
over their.
call them,
Yes.
pester them.
They need to start dreading coming to work because they're not doing their job. And when that happens and people start getting fearful, eventually they know that this basically comes to a head. Because when we sat down and we also did send in the petition, this is constitutionally speaking, this is like saying this is your last chance. Because what happened the last time they denied people, right? Like, I mean, people are getting destroyed. 1776 happened, so they have that implied there. When we need more men to show up, because when there's more women doing this than men. Unfortunately, I hate to
There
say
are
it, but it's true.
definitely more women right now working on securing our liberties, for sure.
And men need to show up because when men get pissed off when you're destroying their families, well, they went and had the Boston Tea Party and then they kicked out the British, right? Like, so we need to have more of that because you can't have half your army and expect to win the battle. Like, that's just not logical.
Totally
So
agree.
we need to make changes. Like, okay, I know we're running up here on time, but I want you to tell people, what do you want to tell people? Your 2 minutes.
I think the key thing is like you said, just get involved in whatever way. Pick something that is dear to your heart and do something about it. And it doesn't have to take a lot of time. It could be reading a newsletter and sending some calls, or it could be getting to know the people you're going to vote for so you make a wise decision. It could be monitoring your legislature and find out what they're voting on so that you can contact your local representative and senator. Just get involved and go out tomorrow in South Carolina and vote. It's a very important primary, but make sure you're an informed voter. And that's what I would say. And feel free to go check out goldstandardelections.com, our white paper on how to revise and refine and re-engineer the election process from start to finish. We also have training materials if you want to know how to better hand count or even do post-election audits. Super easy, quick, fast, and fun. So have at it. It's all on our website, scsafe.elections.org.
All right, go check her out and give her a follow and support the work. And especially if you're in South Carolina, go out and help what they're doing because that's your state. And I mean, for everybody in the country, go ahead and do it. And people across the world, we need to do it in our countries because we have to hold people accountable and I know if you guys go down, we're cooked. Like, I mean, if you guys go communist, we're finished, right? So
isn't Alberta going to join? I think Alberta's going to maybe join us.
The federal government has already been running interference the whole time. And I expect they're globalists, they're criminals. Like, he's a puppet of the CCP. Right. And
exactly.
CCP has been interfering in your guys' elections too.
Oh yeah. Exactly.
All right. So I'll close with a prayer here because we need some of
I love that. Yes, please do.
Heavenly Father, Lord, we thank you for this day. We thank you for your love, grace, and mercy and the work that Laura and those working with her are doing to help secure the election and protect the people and help, Lord, more people to stand up and do what is right and to deal with this evil and this wickedness that is going on and get the men and the women to come together to rebuild our families, our churches, our community, our nation, that we can have some protection for the children who need it the most is my prayer. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
All right. Thank you guys all for watching and share and subscribe. And this is a